Once again, Blue White Illustrated here, right outside the gates of Beaver Stadium, to bring you our conversation about James Franklin's weekly press conference here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. This is senior editor Nate Bauer. He is our certified James Franklin interpreter. So he is the guy who, when you want to know what James Franklin's actually saying, the words between the words, this is the guy to go to. So check out BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for all of that stuff, including what is widely considered the best article I've read all year long about James Franklin and the post-Iowa situation after the game. So excellent job by you. Check it out, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. What did you take from today and the press conference heading into a Northwestern team, which I don't know if we really talked about them a whole lot during the press conference today?
I took that James Franklin wants everyone to know that he's been losing weight. That is, I think, the primary takeaway, given that he was complaining about his coffee. I guess he used to drink very sugary coffee, and now he's drinking it black, straight, no sugar, no cream, and he's a little ornery about that whole situation. And so he asked every single person before they asked a question how they took their coffee. It was something, but it hammered the point home. He has lost weight, so good for him. I think. Look, certainly explosive plays, right? I mean, let's continue with this confessional theme of the season, right? It's there has got to be something to atone for, and this week so far through 4 weeks, it is Penn State's lack of explosiveness offensively, and his addressing of that, right? So he was asked in a variety of ways what the hang-up is, right? How he is perceiving it. And look, I think that his response, it was both measured and acknowledging that there's something to it. Is it the biggest deal in the world? No, I don't think that he's putting it that way. He's acknowledging, look, defenses, the way that they've played Penn State, are very much determined to make sure that Nick Singleton and Katron Allen don't beat them by back-breaking play, right? That is the entire focus. And then on top of that, they are also doing something akin to prevent on the back end of the defense, right? They are refusing to allow getting beat way deep through the passing game. So between those two things, Penn State has had limited opportunities, but they've had opportunities that Penn State really has not been able to maximize, whether that is beating a man on the outside, which is something that he said they need to get better at. For somebody like a Keandre Lambert-Smith, Dante Cephas, whatever, Malik McClain, you have to be able to take a 5-yard gain and turn it into 60 sometimes. That's what's expected of the running backs. And additionally, the running backs who are tasked with beating more than one guy haven't been able to do that so far this year, right? I mean, you're looking at last week, and Nick Singleton's long run was 19 yards. So these are they problems? Not necessarily, but they're areas that need to be addressed and improved upon.
It's always interesting because coaches come into this conversation with, here are the areas that we're telling our players they need to get better even in a win, so that everyone picks up on that, and then they ask questions about that, and I agree. It turns into, hey, you're 4-0, you've scored 30 points every single game, why aren't you scoring more? And by the way, if you want to have a further conversation about all these things, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, we broke down all of this in T. Frank's film room on the defensive and offensive side of the ball in terms of what teams are doing in coverage against Penn State, and also just generally, Nate, this is an interesting thing. One of the questions that I have coming into this is, why so much soft coverage across the country? This is not just something where you look at Penn State. You look at the opponents that Penn State is playing, and I watch a lot of the film of those guys, and the teams that they're facing coming up, they're also facing these soft coverages. So this is kind of a defensive trend throughout college football at the moment, and Penn State is a part of that said trend. So it's just an interesting kind of nuance of this particular team, which is so talented and has so much explosion. And then the last thing you said there about Keandre Lambert-Smith and the receivers on the outside, and I use Keandre Lambert-Smith to mean the guys on the outside, making somebody miss. If Drew Aller is going to get those easy throws, those 6 yards that they're giving you, break a tackle and make an explosive play. That's an area where, we always look at the scheme and how, like, the ball going through the air, as James Franklin said, you can get explosive plays in other ways. One of the other things that I thought was an interesting conversation came down to what they're going to face this weekend in Northwestern, and the quarterback, Ben Bryant, I think is his name. James Franklin called him the best quarterback from a pure passing perspective that Penn State has seen all season. So when you look at that, they've faced a lot of good offensive lines, Nate. They haven't really been tested through the air by a quarterback that can throw the ball. I put on the film myself. Don't know that that's exactly what this guy is. He's just the best they've seen. Fun to watch. So are you interested in seeing the Penn State secondary tested for in a realistic way the first time this year? Or how do you look at things like that of learning more about different parts of the team through now 5 games?
Yeah, I do think that it's maybe the first team that wants that. I mean, he put it out there as a team that wants to beat you passing the ball. Yeah. That's what they think they can do. That's how they're going to try to beat you. So yeah, certainly we have seen in Illinois and Iowa the last 2 weeks teams that is not the identity, right? That's not how they're built to play. And it's almost a lulling effect, right? Of just, okay, well, Penn State stops the run. That is foundational in terms of what Penn State does defensively, and then they feast on that fact, right? They put teams in 3rd and long, and that's where they really come out to play, and so they have success there. Okay, what happens when you're facing a team that throws on 1st down, that throws on 2nd down, that throws on 3rd down? And so, maybe you are not able to necessarily get a team behind the sticks, right? Yeah. I mean, you're going to face potentially more first. I mean, look, Iowa had 4 first downs last week.
Yeah,
like that. It's an insane number for Penn State's defense to have put up. It plays into so many other things. But and you and I kind of talked about this before we came on here. You want some like deep reading between the lines. I think James Franklin took so much delight in beating Iowa the way that Iowa beats everyone else, right? And so that like to have that opportunity, that was something that he wanted to maximize. He took advantage of and laid into, right? They could have thrown the ball in the second half of that game.
He called his shot on Tuesday. If you go back and listen to him, he says this is going to be a game we're going to have to grind it out. He said that after the game, and he said it with his plays during the game, that this was going to be a game they grinded this one out,
and that it would be fun to do so, right? Like it was beyond just there was a point in the game in the second half where I felt like Penn State could have done many different things offensively, right? They could have opened things up a little bit, but why, right? They were enjoying their 7-minute possessions, scoring touchdowns at the end of 13-play drives. So, no, it's going to be an interesting thing to see how Penn State moves forward from this against a Northwestern team that we'll see what they look like defensively, but certainly on the offensive side of the ball is one that's going to play a different style of game than what Penn State's played the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good test for them going into then the rest of their schedule. They've seen a lot of the same. They've seen a lot of good offensive lines, running games. They need to see a team that can test them in a different way, even if we think and we've seen through previous seasons that this is a really good secondary. The last thing I want to just to finish up on the Iowa game and the conversation about the lack of explosive plays, this is an area where I think when we look at James Franklin historically and teams come in and they know they're playing Penn State, they know Penn State wants to get the big play. They know they want to get the shot down the field. But over the last year and a half, I would say, this has been an evolution, I think, from James Franklin of not having to always get those and be content with winning in different ways. And not to say that he wasn't willing to win in different ways before and take a win any way he could, but in years past with Trace McSorley, you're throwing the ball down the field against Iowa, you're putting up a lot of yardage trying to get those explosive plays. And in this game, different style. And I think that we talk a lot about growth and development from players, but coaches can learn and develop as well. And I think that's an area where there's been, at least from my perception, a shift in that area. Last thing is Beau Pribula. Last thing we're going to touch on today. Got into the game. I want to get your thoughts on James Franklin once again saying, hey guys, prepare for Beau Pribula. Yeah. And then what's your thought on like just what this season-long setup of the backup quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, he keeps getting asked about him, right? Yeah. So that's a primary thing is Beau Pribula keeps coming up, which is fine. And I do think that James Franklin wants teams for however long it is, whether it's 5 minutes or 50 minutes or 5 hours, to have to think about Beau Pribula, to have to give that some level of consideration, to take some practice time to show the guy on film. Because there is an element here where Penn State is winning not just to win. they are winning comfortably
Yep.
all the time. I mean, this is, like you said, 1.5 years of learning how to just take the win. Yes, but also they're winning by 4 touchdowns. When they win games since that Purdue game, they're winning by 4 touchdowns. That's nuts how comfortable it's been. And so Beau Pribula has this opportunity and has had opportunities this season, I mean, where he gets to play the entire fourth quarter because there is no threat from the opponent that Penn State has faced so far this season in the fourth quarter. So yeah, Beau Pribula is largely running the ball. I think that James Franklin's point about him, they are comfortable with him running the entire offense is more or less a clapback at saying, look, yeah, we know that he's only running the ball. He can do more than this, and we would be more than comfortable with him doing that if the circumstances dictated it. But the circumstances have not dictated it. The circumstances have dictated the opposite of, hey, we're just trying to run out the clock. The game's over. Get good reps. You're really good at running the ball. Take advantage of that, and we'll see you next week.
And that kind of leads me to my final point. Again, I made this in T. Frank's film room, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Sign up right now because you get the inside information. You can see what I'm talking about. The offense changes when Beau Pribula is in the game, and the running game becomes so much easier. Trey Potts has way more room to run than both Katron Allen and Nick Singleton because of the threat of the quarterback. So I made the joke setting up this conversation of James Franklin is just throwing it out there that he's going to play Beau Pribula during the regulation part of the game. If they need it, if they need an explosive run, they can go and put Beau Pribula on the field, and that can help generate some explosive plays because the offense is set up right now, and defenses are defending it as if the quarterback is a pocket passer. The way Iowa played the game when Beau Pribula came in was if it was still Drew Aller, and they kind of fell apart. Like, they could not defend it. So it is a legitimate threat, and this is one of those conversations of, is the coaching staff holding stuff back? Have we seen the full playbook? You've never seen the full playbook. But there is some truth to that, I think, this year in terms of things they don't need to use because they're winning by 4 touchdowns. Nate, thank you so much for all of your insight today. This is Blue White Illustrated on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe here and like this video if you're having a good time listening to us talk about Penn State football with a giant fan in the background. We will be back with more Penn State football coverage, so stay tuned.